Hey guys, so next installment, decided to change things up. I know on the last video I said I was going to do another bandaging one with Gypsy, but figured I'd change it up just a little bit. I've been kind of chatting with people and trying to figure out what people are interested in, see if they have any questions. So kind of polling people I know, and one of the people that got back to me and made a suggestion was Matt Davis from Final Rise over there. Shout out to him. I don't know if you don't know who that is and what Final Rise is, I suggest you go check out his website. He's making strap vests, and actually he's got quite a bit of different stuff to go along. He's got a sidearm holster I just saw. He's got kind of a pad for turkey hunting, things like that. So I know I haven't been hunting my whole life, but in the several years that I've been upland hunting, I've gone through about 3 different vest systems right now, and his is definitely the best, my personal favorite out of all the ones that I've had. So definitely check his stuff out for sure. So and what he and I were talking about, and what his suggestion was talking about rattlesnake bites. And I know there is some controversy in here, so I'm not going to go into the use of Benadryl. I know there's certainly no scientific evidence that it can help. I know a lot of people have historically carried Benadryl and given it to dogs that have been snake bit in the field. It's certainly not going to do any damage, but like I said, at this point I don't say it's a necessity. If you want to keep doing what you're doing, like I said, it's certainly not going to cause any problems so long as you're not diverting yourself too far away to go buy it unless you have it. So that's about all I'm going to say on that. I'm not going to get into that debate. Like I said, there's no scientific proof that it helps. We don't give it if we treat. So kind of get through some of the stuff and talk about that a little bit. As far as how to know if your dog has been snake bit, usually most common places dogs are going to get snake bit, especially while hunting, oftentimes will be on their legs because they're running over them. Can get bit on their torso, and then sometimes with curious dogs, especially younger dogs, they can get bit in the face, especially if they're pointing them or investigating the sound, things like that. But probably far and away the most common place that dogs get bit is going to be in the limb somewhere. So oftentimes it's certainly painful. They're going to yelp, you might hear them, or they're going to come back to you non-weight bearing on the limb. If you have a smooth coated dog, short haired dog, you might actually see the puncture wounds. There may be some bleeding, not all the time, but you may see the puncture wounds. So that's kind of the tell-all, especially if they're non-weight bearing, limping and coming back to you. What to do at that point is definitely quit hunting for the day and take them to the nearest emergency vet possible. We do not recommend that you wrap or compress the limb. Certainly don't do the whole John Wayne style cutting or trying to suck the venom out. That's not effective. And what you need to do is just get back to your truck as safely as possible, or your rig as safely as possible. The other thing is to either heel your dog, carry your dog, or put them on a lead and walk your dog. The thing you don't want them to do is to keep running around. Even if they go back to using the limb, we want to start to settle that heart rate down, calm them down, because obviously the faster their heart beats, the faster it's going to pump blood, the faster they're going to have a reaction. So keep them kind of low key, get them back to the truck. If there is some bleeding from the punctures, you certainly can put, again, a light bandage on there to keep them from licking at it, but don't wrap it real tight like a compression bandage. So, and then like I said, definitely get them to a facility that can give the antivenin, and that's something that's going to be a big part of this talk right now. I might talk about the vaccine either in this talk or in another one, depending on how long this one goes. But I always recommend treating with the Antivenin. And doing the blood work. So when you get to the vet, what they're going to recommend is they're going to recommend running blood work. They're going to recommend running a CBC, looking at red and white blood cells. If they're a good emergency vet, they should also run what's called a blood smear. This is going to look for echinocytes. Echinocytes are a it's a chemical reaction that happens to red blood cells where they become really spiculated and kind of pointy on the edges. This is pretty classic for snake bit dogs. I guess you could make the argument that if you had come in and seen them get snake bit, that you may not need to do that, but certainly if there's any question at all, you should absolutely they should actually run a blood smear and look for echinocytes. They're also going to look at running a biochemistry profile, looking at liver, kidneys, electrolytes and glucose, things like that. Definitely always a good idea. They're also going to talk to you about running coag times, PT and PTT. This is really important to do. So the main things that are going to be affected by the venom are going to be platelets, red blood cells, and the coagulation times. They can cause coagulopathies, which obviously can be a big deal. You don't want your dog having issues clotting, especially when they're dealing with some kind of envenomation that's going to cause damage to tissues. So it's good to know what's going on at the very beginning, because it doesn't take long for these things to start to be affected. So do the blood work. And then they're going to want to treat. They're going to want to treat with the Antivenin. This is going to mean that your dog is going to have to stay with them either for a few hours or even overnight. Could be a 12-hour stay in the hospital. They're also going to recommend painkillers, which obviously we want to do. I've typically treated with either oral codeine, or oftentimes I'll treat with morphine, hydrocodone, hydromorphone, fentanyl, whatever they have in stock, whatever is going to be most effective. I think mostly I treat with either, if I have access to it, I do like morphine or buprenorphine. Those are the couple that I've treated with mostly. Fentanyl's kind of a pain. It's a nice painkiller, but you do have to run it as a what's called a CRI, constant rate infusion. And you can't run that unless you place another IV catheter. You can't run that at the same time as the Antivenin. So that's going to be the next thing. The reason that your dog is going to have to stay in the hospital for either several hours or even overnight is because of the fact that the Antivenin has to be given as a transfusion. So what this means is it comes in a little bottle. It's only about this big. But the venom molecules are very large. They're high molecular weight molecules. And so this is what interrupts issues with like the clotting times, long-standing issues if we don't treat, if you don't treat your dog at all, is they can actually cause issues with kidney function later on, several years down the line, because these large molecular weight proteins basically settle out in the glomerulus and the nephrons and things like that in the kidneys, and they cause problems. So we need to flush those out, which means the dog needs to be on IV fluids for a period of time. And that Antivenin is made, as a counteraction to these large molecular weight molecules. So the Antivenin itself is a large molecular weight molecule, so we can't give it too fast. It's not a vaccine. It's not a one and done, wing and a snap, on your way kind of treatment. What we do is we dilute it into a bag of saline and give it over about 3 hours, and we monitor, because just like blood transfusions, plasma transfusions, just like the vaccines themselves, dogs can have transfusion reactions. So we monitor things very closely. every 5 minutes for the first hour of the transfusion, every 5 to 10 minutes, we're checking heart rate, we're checking respiratory rate, we're checking temperatures. Obviously, having eyes on dogs. There's someone by the dog's side every moment of that transfusion. So, this is what we're doing to ensure that they're accepting the Antivenin appropriately. And then we want to make sure that there's no delay in a reaction. So, again, typically, I keep them in the hospital for at least 2 to 3 hours after that transfusion's done. So right there, you're looking at a 6-hour stay at the very least. You get to the hospital at 9 o'clock at night, and they're probably just going to stay overnight and go home first thing in the morning after 8, which is just going to be easiest on everybody. You go back to a hotel or your camper or your house or whatever, get some rest knowing that your dog is being treated. So there's also going to be follow-up with your regular veterinarian or a regular veterinarian in your area if you don't already have one. So what you're going to want to look at, you're most likely, especially on that initial blood work, they're seeing changes to the blood work. You're going to want to recheck that. So in about 5-7 days, you're going to be heading back to the vet unless there's some major changes. If those coag times are really off, your platelets are really low, you may be at the vet in 3 days rechecking it. If everything's looking okay, we may be able to get away with seeing you back in about 5 to 7 days and redoing at the very least a CBC and coags. If your regular vet doesn't have the ability to run coags in-house, they may need to send them out. These are all typical things that we deal with. So be prepared for that. Because of what goes into it to protect these pets, this isn't a cheap situation. I mean, I would expect, from working at emergency hospitals and specialty hospitals, this can range anywhere from, a broad idea could be, on the cheaper side, maybe $1,000 to $2,000, depending on how much people charge for hospitalization. All depends on where you're at, if you only have access to a large, specialty facility, you may be closer to that, $2,000 range. If, this is, where I'm at right now, at a 24-hour facility in the Treasure Valley that's not a specialty hospital, you're probably looking at least $1,000 to $1,500 for everything. So maybe even a little bit more depending on pain management and the Antivenin and things like that. So like I said, just be prepared for that and set some money aside, or get one thing that I won't get too far into and probably be a topic for another time is get pet insurance, man. Like, I'm telling you, it's tough because for most of the pet insurances, you do have to have the money up front. There are some, like Trupanion, like I said, I'm not going to get into this too much, but like Trupanion, some of them in emergency situations will pay up front, but the vast majority of them, you got to pay up front, file the claim, and you get reimbursed. And you can get 80-90% of your money back, but you still got to be able to pay the vet bills when you pick your pet up. So, but you still get the money back if you have it. So, get it. It's a huge deal. You may go years without needing it, but if you have it and you need it and you use it, it's a lifesaver. It's a game changer. Like, really it is. So set money aside, have a savings fund for emergencies, especially during hunting season or heavy training season. Have money aside for your pets and have insurance. It's a game changer. It's a huge thing when you're able to just drop that money when you've already got it. You know what it's there for. So that's my thing on that. So obviously other alternatives, obviously treating is really the possible outcomes without treatment are pretty scary. Like I said, long term you can have kidney damage. They can go, obviously they can have coagulopathies. They can go into what's called DIC, disseminated intravascular coagulopathy, which is essentially means their platelets go to zero and they just kind of bleed everywhere, and it can be fatal. It can be. Odds of survival are really high with treatment. So, like I said, it's always recommended that we treat them. It's not that huge of a deal. 12-hour stay in the hospital, a couple $1,000s. Granted, it's a couple $1,000s, but it's for the life of your pet, it's worth it. So, I guess I haven't gone too far, so I will talk about the vaccine. It is out there. It is an option. I do know people that do vaccinate for it, for using the rattlesnake vaccine. I don't typically recommend it, mostly because really, if you ask specialists, if you look into it, even if your dog has the vaccine, it's still recommended that you treat. It's going to buy you time. They may not have as bad of a reaction when they're bit, but it's still recommended that you treat completely. You do exactly what I just went through. So it doesn't really change the outcome. It doesn't mean your pet's completely protected. It doesn't mean you can have your dog get snake bit and just not worry about it. You still got to treat. You still got to go to the vet. Plus, unlike a lot of your regular vaccines, there's a much higher risk of possible vaccine reactions, like an anaphylactic reaction. Because again, we're vaccinating for something that's a large molecular weight protein. This isn't vaccinating against a virus or a bacteria even, like we try to do. This is not vaccinating against some tiny little, like I said, tiny little virus. This is a venom. This is a large molecule. So the vaccine has to be the same. And like I said, I've read a lot of and talked to a lot of people that have used it. I've never personally used it because going through school and doing the research, I've never seen a justification for it. So I don't think it's worth it. It's also, as far as vaccines go, it's a pretty expensive one. So it's not. I would rather save the money to treat on my dogs and go through something like snake avoidance classes. So that's a huge one. I haven't had a chance to do it with either of my dogs. Unfortunately, working the hours that I work, I'm typically busy on weekends, so I have yet to be able to find one that I can attend. But I tell you this right now, if I do, I'll be there, and we're gonna go through it because it's worth it. So. To kind of recap, because that's pretty much all I've got to say on it, so I guess we were able to boil this down to one probably semi-long video, is avoidance training is a great thing to do. I think it's probably one of the best things you can do to avoid having to treat your dogs. If we can train them to just stay away from the pet or from the snakes, and don't necessarily recommend the vaccine. And obviously, if your dog does get snake bit, treat. And like I said, and follow the vet's instructions. Follow what they recommend to do. There is a reason. They're not trying to jerk you around. They're not trying to pad that bill by doing blood work. There's a specific reason that we look for the things that we look for because of what can happen. And do the transfusion. I know it's not cheap. I know it's a bummer having your dog stay in the hospital. But the likelihood of survival with treating with the Antivenin, it's like I said, the odds are in their favor that they're going to be fine if you treat, and they're going to go home on pain meds, plus or minus, maybe antibiotics. I don't send home antibiotics with every snake bit dog that I see. It depends on how big a reaction. If it's a several hour drive before they get to me and their leg's super swollen and there's a lot of edema and possibility of areas for bacteria to hide with infection, then yeah, maybe I'll do 5-7 days of antibiotics. Most of the time, if it's pretty quick and they come in right away and the swelling goes down, I won't always treat them with antibiotics. It's not absolutely necessary, but you know, every situation is different, so take the vet's advice and trust them. If they're in an emergency hospital that is carrying the Antivenin, then they know what they're doing. You know, they know how to give it, and they've done this before, so I would trust them. And like I said, that's pretty much what we have on snake bites. So if you have any other questions, or again, if you think of anything that you want to know specifically, please drop a comment below. Again, find me on Instagram and under the same moniker, PNW Upland DVM, and drop me a line there. And like I said, we'll just keep making these videos. I'm trying to get on a schedule to make them. I know they've been kind of sporadic, which is tough. Unfortunately, that has been my work schedule, is sporadic. A couple weeks ago, I worked every single shift from day shift to swing to overnights in 1 week. My life is a little hectic right now when it comes to hours that I'm working and days that I'm working. So I'm going to try and get on a schedule to get these out to you guys. So like I said, drop me a line if you have any specific questions or requests for first aid videos, and we'll keep going through them. And I hope you enjoy them, so let me know. Thanks.